Welcome back to Sam's Garage, presented by NH Oil Undercoating. Sam and Doug mock up the rear disc conversion for the Alpha 1 GTO. Originally, the car came with factory drum brakes in the rear. The new disc brakes will hold up to the abuse and heat generated while out on the track.
That's going to look really good under the hood of our 250 GTO. It's going to make a whole bunch of power as well. That's why we have to consider stopping the car. Now, Doug and I have already completed the rear suspension upgrade, installing lower control arms and a coilover setup. We're going to ditch the drum brakes and install a 4-piston Willwood setup with cross-drilled and vented rotors. It's going to also have a remote e-brake caliper. This is going to be a huge improvement over the drum brakes. It's going to give us a lot of stopping power for when Doug's on the racetrack.
A tech tip here is when you're putting an axle in, make sure you spin it, because if it wobbles, you know it's not going in straight and you're going to have to adjust it. So you always want to tap it in, look at it. This is spinning real true. I know we're in real good shape, so we'll go ahead and keep going in.
So what we're doing now is we're installing the billet bracket that's going to house and hold our caliper and our emergency brake caliper. It's going to utilize 3 of the 4 bolts that originally held the entire brake drum assembly in place. All right, so what you see Doug doing is he is grinding the outer edges of our factory hub so that it will fit in the diameter of the inside of this rotor. And we are going to get new hubs, because what you really want to do is do this on a lathe so that this is perfectly round, because if it's not, then it's going to have a high spot and it'll create vibration just like you had a wheel that's out of balance.
Okay, what we're going to need to do, Sam's finishing up that side. What I've done over here is I put everything together loosely and then mocked it up to see if it's going to work. And then what I've realized right now is we're going to have to space the wheel out. So I'm going to need to disassemble it and then reassemble it, measure what kind of spacer we're going to need in there so we have clearance for the brake caliper. Just nothing more than washers, and then we'll know how many washers we need, and then we'll measure those, and then we'll go ahead and get a solid plate made up as a one-piece spacer. This is just for mocking up purposes.
On the Willwood caliper, because it's a little universal, you can put on the left and right. We have bleeders on the top and bottom. When you're bleeding your system, you ignore the bottom ones. You only bleed from the top, because if you do the bottom, you'll never get the air out and you'll have a spongy pedal. Okay? Then we also have this e-brake here. This is similar to like what you would see in a C8 Corvette or a Dodge Viper. Normally these e-brakes are incorporated in the caliper, or if you have a drum system, it's going to be incorporated within the rear drums. But we removed all that, and so there is no room for a caliper, because you see there's no room for an actuated caliper. We were able to put this remote caliper on. Beauty is that if you get those bolt-on spacers, they're going to bolt on, they're going to be thick, they're going to come with their own studs, and you're good to go. But if you don't have luxury to that kind of spacer, you can always go to ARP, and they sell long studs for practically any car out there, and just install them when we go ahead and get new stub axles, round them out, make sure they're true, install them. That way everything back here is new and everything is clearance. And when it comes to these two, make sure you shim them right, make sure when you spin the rotor, it actually turns. See that? Okay, so there's a little bit of shimming and clearance that you got to do so that you guys don't go down the road and your brakes lock up on you due to friction. That looks really good. Old school Dayton wheel, filled completely up with rotor and brake. Awesome.
Oh yeah, look, it's great. You know, it was a lot of work getting it here. Make sure you guys, when you're doing this at home, you're taking your time, you're mocking it up. After you mock it up, make sure that you can spin it, the wheel spins real free, and that test the brakes, make sure they're good.
Yeah, you know, take your time when you're doing big brake upgrades. It's gonna take some time. That's why they supply you with all those shims. Do it right, do it once. It is a safety feature of the vehicle, so you cannot cut any corners.